Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Uncensored Critic podcast. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. It means the world to me. Thank you very, very much. And today we welcome along another fantastic actor through these doors by the name of Tom Edden. Is that correct way of saying it? Edden?
Edden, that is it. Two D's,
Two
yes.
D's, yes. It's like a common theme on here. I always mispronounce people's names when I start.
No, it's a tricky
Uh,
one.
yeah. So let's take a moment to introduce Tom. I'm sure all of you are familiar with his work, but for anyone who isn't, then this one's for you here and now. So Tom has appeared for television in things like Starstruck 2, for the BBC, Upstart, Crow, The Woman in Red, and Doctor Who. For film, Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, Cinderella, directed by Ken Branagh, and Mr. Turner, directed by Mike Leigh, starring the great Timothy Spall. And for theatre, I mean, I could go on for ages of how much theatre this man has done, but this is just a small sample of the work that he's done on the stage. So Peter Pan Goes Wrong with Mischief Theatre Company, Oliver at Theatre Royal Drury Lane, Les Miserables at the Queen's playing at Thenardier, Matilda playing at Mr. Wormwood, Pinter at the Pinter, Cyrano de Bergerac with James McAvoy, Amadeus at the National, The Resistible Rise of Arturo at the Donmar. I've probably pronounced that wrong as
That's
well.
pretty good.
Arturo, nearly there, nearly there. And One Man, Two Governors, where he starred as Alfie, both in the West End, Broadway, and UK tour. And most recently, last year, Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett at the Theatre Royal Haymarket, alongside Ben Whishaw and Lucien Masmati, where he played Lucky. And so it's a pleasure to have you, sir. How are you?
Thank you, Ollie. Well, this is it's a nice little treat because you just bumped into me the other day. We both went to see Intimate Apparel at the Donmar, and you were very charming and polite. And so it's very nice to see. Well, I've seen you in the flesh, and it's nice to see you now in
Virtually.
podcast land.
In
So
podcast
thank you.
land.
Yeah,
Before we get onto that, big shout out to Intimate Apparel and the Donmar. It's a wonderful show.
absolutely.
I encourage you guys to go and see it. And of course, shout out to Faith and Mole, who's in it, who's also been on here as well. Faith, fantastic performance, darling, absolutely great. So we start at the start question for every guest. So in your case, Tom, where did it come from? The love of acting?
Oh gosh, well, I guess I think I think I sort of regarded myself as a middle child, even though I'm not. I have an older brother and I'm a twin. I had a twin sister.
Mm.
And for some reason, when we were small, much was made, I think psychologically, of the idea that my mother had a cesarean section when she had us being the twins. And I was pulled out first. So I always feel that's makes me this middle child or something. I don't know. I was doing it from a very young age at sort of drama clubs and things like that. And I think that was just for attention. I hate to say that's the entire motivation of my professional life, but oddly, I think that is partly where it all starts. And I imagine some actors would probably admit to the same. But of course, as I matured and as my engagement with it matured and my interest in it matured, I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. It felt like it was something I was good at and could get better at, that I found fulfilling and was full of variety and interesting. I can't really speak to whatever spark is just sort of in me that is an impulse to perform. I suppose that's just sort of in you, I guess, or not. I know certainly some people very much don't have that, and there's a lot of things I don't have. I don't have sporting, for example, sports. It could not be. It's like another planet. So I don't know. Maybe these things are sort of dealt out in some cosmic card game. But no, I had a very, very good drama teacher. Was a big fork in the road that very much set me on a path. An excellent, passionate drama teacher called Jennifer Haynes. And yeah, well, there's a very long answer to that question, but the short answer is that it was something I'd been doing from a very young age and have always enjoyed.
Yeah, yeah. Was there like kind of one performance? Like, did you go to the theatre much as when you were a kid?
Well, funnily enough, I didn't actually. It wasn't until there was a very good. Well, I went to this secondary school in Guildford, which is where I'm from.
Hmm.
George Abbott, shout out.
Yeah.
And there was a good, because I think being close to London, it seemed like there was quite a lot of theatre trips, from this very passionate drama teacher, but also the English department went on theatre trips quite a bit. So I managed to sort of jump onto that as well. And it felt like from the age of, gosh, I suppose about 14, 15, I really started a sort of practical education in proper grown-up theatre, because we went to the National Theatre a lot, because it's, you know, near Waterloo, and Guildford is not far. And that was a big revelation for me. That really opened my eyes. And seeing people on stage like, some people won't know these names and some people will, but people like Alan Howard and Kenneth Cranham, who was doing a lot of the NT at that time, and Simon Russell Beale and Fiona Shaw, and you know, saw some really wonderful, you know, I saw Duchess of Malfi with Juliet Stevenson and Simon Russell Beale. It's a wonderful production of Macdonald with Fiona Shaw and John Woodvine, and Sweeney Todd, the Declan Donnellan production with Julia Mackenzie. And that, I have to say, that really stayed with me. To this day, I don't think I've seen a greater comic performance by man or woman on stage than Julia Mackenzie's Mrs. Lovett. So yeah, those were really the building bricks, those experiences that really stayed with me. And I would pore over the program and sort of, you know, almost fetishize the building of the National Theatre. You know, it actually looks like Mecca, this great cube, doesn't it? This sort of brutalist thing. So yeah, that really, really turned me on. But that as a theatre going habit, that didn't come till I was sort of at school in GCSE. When I was younger, I think we went to the pantomime now and then. When I was really small, it frightened the life out of me. We had to go home early. So it was more actually that not to go on too long, but it was more that my father, knowing that I think I had a bit of a spark, and my mother, they would sort of direct my attention to certain people on television. And when The Singing Detective was shown or reshown, my dad would say, "Oh, that's a good actor, Michael Gambon." And then I remember Derek Jacobi being in something, and either my mother or father said, "Well, that's a good actor." And it just, my antenna just tuned into that sort of thing. I use those two examples because they're my all-time favorite actors. I can't, for me, there is no one above them. But yeah, so the juices were flowing, and these were the things that turned me on. And so when we, as I say, through the school started going to theatre, looking back now, that was part of the dominoes started to fall then, that the desire specifically to get to the National Theatre and to go, what is the path? And okay, I need to focus on drama schools and to focus on this A-level. And luckily, no one was standing in my way. My parents were very supportive, and I had all the things in place that a young person would need to think, I can go into this fearlessly. So I was very lucky.
Yeah. And you mentioned there about the one performance. Who was the lady who played Mrs. Lovett? Sorry, I forgot the name.
Julia Mackenzie.
Julia Mackenzie, yeah. What was it about her performance? Because that role is, I mean, if you get that role right, Mrs. Lovett, if you do it well, then my God, you're just remembered so well because it's such a big part. But what was it about her specifically, do you think?
It was a combination of utter technical prowess, a capability, at the same time as an utter sense of relaxation. That it was just coming to her as easily as breathing. And yet, obviously, it would have taken an enormous amount of study and work, and she just had an impeccable timing. She just had Julia Mackenzie in that role, just had funny bones. And it was all very new to me. I mean, I didn't know who Stephen Sondheim was. I don't know what year it was. It must have been 90. I was young. I was like, I guess I was about 15. So I was green. I didn't really know who Sondheim was. I didn't really know who she was. It was Dennis Quilley as Sweeney Todd. I didn't really know who any of these people were. So when the line came, oh, the line about just the thought of it's enough to make you sick, and I'm telling you them pussycats is quick. The wonderful line in The Worst Pies in London where she talks about people putting pussies into pies. It's such a work of genius. It's such a Fabergé egg, that lyric and that music, obviously. And her in simpatico with that material felt perfect. I think there's, and I'd never heard that before, and her clarity. Sometimes I get annoyed when you see a musical or a new musical and you go, I actually didn't catch that lyric, and you've got to be, you could be Daniel Day-Lewis, but if I can't hear what you're saying, it's you're wasting it. And she, again, that was one of her great skills, was an immense clarity. But I just think over and above, she just was such a stage animal, and just an enormous talent. And it's sad because Cameron McIntosh is a great champion of hers, but she's not been on stage for some time. I don't know what the reasons are, but everyone should exalt Julia Mackenzie. She really, really is wonderful. But just to finish, I think, the memorable performances that I have seen that have been like beacons to me, or any of us, that we remember, God, that was an all-time great. There's something about a combination of the material, the writing, the piece, and the performer seeming to have been made for one another. And in that moment, and you get that a lot in dance, you get that a lot in music as well, but you know it when you see it, that kind of just sort of sublime conjunction. And that performance, my God, that was one of them. And I'd have to say Jane Krakowski as Adelaide in Guys and Dolls, I would put up there as that sort of thing. And quite a few years ago, that Guys and Dolls. Anyway, and many others, but that was the benchmark for me at a young age. I thought, wow, I've just witnessed a great performance. And I've got a terrible prejudice. It doesn't matter who plays Mrs. Lovett now. I go, well, it's not Julie Mackenzie. And I know that's a really stinky thing to do, but it's one of the only times I do that, because I cherish memory. Yeah.
I'm sure we all have like one part or one production or one play, one role who we just think no one can ever better that in our eyes.
It's what you get that very much. And I know we will cover this, but I played Fagin a few years ago at Sheffield, and that's a perfect example. Ron Moody made that part. Everyone else just had a crack at it, and there's been great Fagins and wonderful Fagins, but it's like Julie Andrews as, in Sound of Music as Maria. There's a person and a part and a moment in time, and it perhaps will never be perfected anyway.
Yeah, for me, it's you're not gonna like me for saying this, but I saw the I saw the Sweeney Todd of 2012 with Michael Ball and Imelda Staunton. Yeah, and for me, like, Imelda Staunton was just
she's pretty good.
She was very good. She was very good. Yeah. Did you see that?
I'm sure if I hadn't, listen, Imelda Staunton is a giant of the stage. She's an enormous talent. Absolutely. I didn't see that production, but no, she's extraordinary, of course.
Yeah, God, that was amazing. We could talk about Sweeney Todd for ages, couldn't we? But so let's so you went to Rose Bruford as well, didn't you, for training?
Yes, I went to Rose Bruford in 1997. In the last century.
Wow. Gosh. And how was it? How was your training?
Oh, God. Well, in the main, it was very good. I mean, again, good teachers. That's what you connect with. I think I really took advantage of it because I was so, I'm not saying I was alone in this, but I was so determined that this is what I was going to do. And I had really been eating up every opportunity I'd had up until that point, doing amateur stuff in Guildford and all the stuff at the school we did with our wonderful teacher. So I was just hungry. I was like, give me more, give me more. And I think when I went into that formal training, I'd had all this experience on stage as an amateur, young, teenager. So I liked the fact that we were going to do lots of plays, obviously. But I think what really was, I thought, oh, this is where I'm actually changing, was the voice and the movement classes, because that's stuff that you don't do as an amateur at GCSE or A level, because GCSE A level, you're doing theatre studies. You're not training to be an actor.
No.
It's not that, and that's not it's appropriate that that's how it is. But you know, when you're training to be an actor, I was like, oh, this is new information. This is stuff that's going to increase my capacity, hopefully. So that I really interfaced with gleefully. And I have a very good movement teacher and a wonderful voice teacher. So I sort of edit. I'm very studious. I'm quite a good boy. I'm quite a swot. So I was always quite a good boy at school. So I was someone who, you know, some people have an issue with authority or just naturally don't like school. And I, you know, understand all that. But I was never one of those people. I was quite, if I felt like there's a teacher who can teach me something, I'm an open book. I'm there. And again, a show off, like I'm a craven attention seeker, and I wouldn't say like teacher's pet, but there's that. It's funny, isn't it? As soon as drama school starts, there's a natural competition, even though you're all falling in and it's student days and you're all making great friends. You do secretly, you know, you're in the head going, oh, what's the league table here?
Yeah.
Who's doing well, who impressed at that moment and stuff. And that, you know, there's something about that that's very unhealthy, but there's something about that that's very unavoidable as well. That you pitch yourself in and go. But it was a bit of a bloodbath at the end, because I mean, I guess maybe the thing that was how do I say this politely? I took a great deal from the training, and I took a great deal from the good teachers that I had there, and that was a great value. Our showcase, there was like 60 people in our showcase. So I don't know how successful we were at interfacing with the industry. But it's so hard. You're 21. And I went back and taught a little bit at Italia Conti over COVID. And you just see how young and how sort of keen. And it's, I wouldn't go through that again for all the tea in China, because the world, the great big world out there is cruel and doesn't really care about you. Do you know what I mean? And you're all being, and now there's so many drama schools and so many people. Every year there's another wave of hundreds of, so it's very hard, but it took me a while to, I would say it took me 10 years to really feel like I got in at an entry level that I felt was going to get me somewhere. Like, I didn't get an agent. I was in a cooperative agency where the actors sort of run the thing themselves. I don't know if they exist anymore. Maybe there's one or two. I didn't really get an agent until I was 30, 31.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't get my first job in London until I was that age. So in my 20s, I was pretty scrappy. I mean, I was doing a lot of good work that I really, really appreciated and enjoyed immensely. But there was a lot of gaps. And it was all either at Northampton. Rupert Gould and Simon Godman were very good to me and very loyal when they were running Northampton, but at Salisbury and, you know, outdoor theatre in Oxford, a tour of Northern Ireland. Now, I'm not turning my nose up at any of this in the slightest, but it felt like this is what a young actor does at the beginning of their career. And there was a point at the end of my 20s, having done that sort of work for about 10 years, where I was like, I don't want to be doing this for the next 10 years. I want to feel like a rung of a ladder is being scaled here. So what has to happen? And luckily, that's when I got Oliver in the West End, the big revival with Rowan Atkinson. And it was the first West End job. It was the first job in London. It was a year contract. It was relative to what I'd been earning. It was good money. So it felt like a corner I needed to turn after a decade of kind of grafting away with lots of little gaps and having to do lots of other side jobs and going, I don't know if I've got what I need in the tank to just stay here. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
I've answered about 7 questions in one.
No, mate, it's fantastic. Don't worry. No, it's interesting because, you know, it's almost like you get like a secure base in a way, like with all these theatre companies, you know, Rupert Gould and Simon Godwin, like you just said. And like you say, like it keeps you going, but then you think, do I really want to keep doing this again, like for another 10 years, you know, because like you want to get the foundations right, which I'm sure you did, and then now it's like, okay, now we can go on to other things because I don't want to get trapped in a cycle for too
Well, I
long.
wanted to, I wanted to get, it's not, I don't think it's sort of psychotically ambitious of me to say that when I left drama school, I wanted to work at the National Theatre. I wanted to work with the best. I wanted to work in the West End and all those things. And some people walk straight into that, and, man, good for them. But I remember when I did Amadeus, actually, there was a chap who was understudying one of the main parts. And it's perfectly natural, but he was sort of frustrated. It's like, I don't want to get stuck, just being an understudy or whatever. And I was like, when did you graduate? And he said, oh, this is my first job. Like, right, okay.
Okay.
Because I was like, first job at the National. It's like, you're fine.
Yeah.
But it's good to have that hunger. But I was like, God, well, it's taken me, 11 years to get to the National Theatre. So, but it's different. Everyone's path is different.
Yeah, exactly. But speaking of Amadeus, I want to jump on that for just a moment, and that was something really, really, really special, that show. I mean, and of course that was another time you worked with Lucien Masmati as well, because he was Salieri.
Yes,
and a very, very good Salieri, I must add, as well. You played the Emperor, who was just like, he didn't know which way was up, down, what was left, what was right. I mean. And how do you approach a character like that? Because he had his tagline as well. There it is.
There it is. Well, do you know what? Actually, I'll try and keep. I have a tendency to waffle.
Yeah, bring it all, mate. Bring it all.
Well, no, I'd been lucky enough at that, but my career was very much BG and AG before Guvnors and after Guvnors. One Man, Two Guvnors really changed everything, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Of course.
But this was AG after Guvnors. And I'd been lucky enough to do, off the sort of afterglow of that, do this film that you mentioned with Mike Leigh. Now, he is famous, among many other of his incredible genius talents. He's famous for doing very in-depth, very meticulous research, improvisation, really baking the actors deep into a lived-in, plausible reality and character. And that was also true for the work we did to prepare for Mr. Turner. So he'd through working with him, I saw the way he layered research, lists and reams of questions to ask yourself about the character, to a level of meticulousness that you would sort of find almost psychotically, like, what was your great grandmother's name? What was it? What was her life? So you had to go through the life story in every single parental life. In the way that, of course, about the lives of your grandparents and your parents. And somebody's like, well, then you should do on behalf of this character. So anyway, so I was very fresh from that, and combined with that kind of zeal, I suppose, and the fact that the subject matter of Amadeus was really my cup of tea, because I love classical music. Classical music is my absolute passion. I really jumped in with both feet, and I took myself to Vienna, actually, as a little sort of research / why not, a little city break to Vienna, to go to all the places that are in the play, to the palace, to all these things. I read this book about the Emperor. There seems to be only one book about him. I can't remember what it was called. Anyway, I read it. And no, I just really, in terms of approaching that character, because he was real, and I think that was the thing about Mike Leigh and what we did with the Turner movie, is that we were playing real characters, or at least I was playing this real-life painter who happened to have written quite extensive diaries. In fact, a lot of what we know about Turner, or a fair bit about what we know about Turner, is because this portrait painter that I was playing happened to be a bit of a gossip, basically, and wrote quite a lot of anecdotal stuff about him. So I thought, well, for this character, he was a real man, and he was an emperor, for God's sake. So, he's not like he's some anonymous normal person like you or I. He's going to have a lot of information about him. And there was plenty to find out. So I enjoyed finding out about that period of history. And funnily enough, it sort of dovetailed into research around Les Mis as well, because it sort of occurs just slightly before the French Revolution. Anyway, so I did a lot of research and sort of allowed myself to go, okay, how do I flesh this person out, and allow him to be an interesting person. And I think, I don't know what it must do to your brain to be born into that kind of court, palace, monarchy. And almost every thought you have is pre-decided, or it's a sort of combination of incredible wealth, power, privilege, of course, and yet virtually no autonomy, no sort of freedom in a strange way. And yet all this wealth, and I don't know if you would call it freedom, though. That's the, we don't need to, weep any tears for him, but you get my point. I sort of thought, what happened to him? He wouldn't have ever been able to decide who to fall in love with. He couldn't decide. I don't know, and weeks and months would pass by and you'd never leave that palace. And that sounds all right, I guess, but also it's sort of like living in an incredibly nice zoo, being in a really beautiful cage, you know. And certainly that's preferable than perhaps the life that everyone else was leading. Anyway, I was interested in the weird idiosyncrasies, and obviously Schaffer's wonderful text.
Oh my God, yeah.
It all just is some wonderful lines to have to say, but they all made sense. That he, the jokes he has are the fact that he's just this sort of man-child, who is sort of bumping up against his own slight, what would you say, undeveloped humanity. It's sort of almost like a sort of really intelligent robot. Not quite sure what it is to be an actual person, which I think a lot of us can see when we see like super, super rich or super, super posh people like that. You do sometimes get that feeling, don't you?
If you look at Elon Musk or someone like that, you can tell he's just like a robotic kind of qualities. Now I think about it, it's just the way he talks, the way he moves, and
Yeah. And if everyone really, really cares about every word that comes out of your mouth, that must do something odd to you.
Yeah. God, just to be thinking about that all the time. God, I remember the way you played it as well. You almost like played him with like, your upper body didn't move very much. It was all in the legs, I remember, and then just everything was really tight. You had that arm gesture as well. Well, there it is, just like that. Okay, really, really like tight and really kind of like you say, there was almost like you said, there's a caution of what to say. It's like, well, there it is. I know no one's going to criticize me for saying there it is, so therefore that's the same option.
But also he didn't have anything else to say about it. I mean, maybe Schaffer's version of the Emperor slightly dulls. I don't think he was a stupid man in real life. I think the play version allows for an idea that he is a little bit more dull, because it serves to sort of promote the idea that Mozart wasn't fully appreciated, his genius wasn't fully appreciated. Whereas actually in real life he was quite a big advocate for him. But half of that is the costume. As soon as you put that costume on, you can't relax in those costumes. And the wig and everything, and you look like this. Well, you are dressed as this emperor. You can't slouch in that kind of stuff. But
no, the costumes are amazing. I remember.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, amazing. Funny enough, I think I was actually at the National at the time. I was working in the director's office upstairs. I was on a work placement there, and I don't know why. I had to go up one of the flights of stairs. So you go through the stage door, and then you've got these stairs that go up, and you can see into rooms. I think some of them were entrances towards the Olivier stage. So I'd always just look round and see who was there. And I think there was like a matinee on one day, and I just looked across and I'm seeing in this sort of dull 21st century staircase, you look around the corner and there's people from 17th century Vienna with violins and stuff just walking through.
It was I think part of the success of that production was that it really, I think what they'd said is the original production of Amadeus, they were actually quite shy about how much music to put in it, because they wanted the play to very much succeed or fail on its own merits.
Yeah.
Rather than, if you play 5 minutes of Mozart, it doesn't matter how bad the play is, you're going to have elevated it And so they didn't want to, as it were, rely on that or cheat. So actually, as far as I was told, the original production with Paul Schofield, Simon Callow, wasn't that heavy on music. Or it was very much, pre-recorded and as if it was happening in another room or something. And then after the success of the play, an enormous success, the movie was like, right, let's go for it. Let's have tons of music.
Yeah.
And I don't think there'd been a theatre production of it until the Michael Longhurst National Theatre one that I was in, that kind of did the same thing and said, right, let's drown this in as much Mozart as we can get and put this massive orchestra on stage and get half a dozen opera singers. And that was just, heaven. I enjoyed that so much. And these musicians, you get four of them together and they start playing something, and then there it is. I get so romantic about it. Mozart is then in the room. That creation is as alive as it was when he wrote it. And I became very good friends with a lot of the musicians. We got very geeky and started a symphony club, which would meet every couple of months. And we got very, that had a wonderful long shadow of friendship and appreciation, that show,
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, I think I saw it twice actually, because I was perks of being in the director's office. They said, "We've got some spare seats for Amadeus tonight. Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'll go and see it." Yeah. But no, that was amazing. And also, just quick mention the film as well. The film it's a masterpiece. It's an absolute masterpiece.
It's one of my favorite movies. Yeah, it's one of those movies I have to sort of give a pause to because I've watched it too much.
Yeah, me too.
So you have to sort of wait a bit. I'm like, can I watch it again? You've got to wait.
Yeah, but
I probably overwatched it.
Yeah, I suppose like in the rehearsal, like when you rehearse to like music and stuff, obviously then you hear like, and it's not Mozart or something, then you're like, okay, God, and by the end of the day, you're like, please, I do not want to hear this music anymore. I don't want to hear this track. I want to go home and forget about it. Whereas with Mozart, you could hear it all day and then leave and go, do you know, I could listen to some more. Yeah, it's crazy.
I could talk about classical music forever, and I know that's not what this podcast is, but he's not normal. Like you sort of can't compare him to anybody. It's not like, musicians like Mozart. There are no musicians like Mozart.
No.
And it's not like, and people do this with Shakespeare sometimes where, they deify them and therefore everything they ever wrote is a masterpiece. It's not necessarily true. This guy was writing symphonies when he was 12, and they would have been not generic, but the point is, the stuff he was writing at the end of his life, his last three symphonies, his operas, and so forth, these were the things that are untouchable. They are untouchable, and he, as far as I'm concerned, I think, you have Bach and you have Mozart and you have Beethoven. And then you have everybody else, those are the three supporting pillars.
Yeah.
And Mozart was perhaps, I don't know, but there's an argument that he was the greatest musician that ever lived, just in terms of his raw talent. And you can't compare him to anybody because it's freakish. It's freak. Yeah. He's a freak. It's like trying to paint a painting and go, oh, well, it's not as good as Van Gogh. And it's like, well, no, it isn't. It can't be.
You can't.
Because no one is. It's how many times do individuals like that arrive on Earth?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Just one last question on Mozart. What's your favorite piece?
Oh, well, off the top of my head, the last movement of his Jupiter Symphony number 41, which is his last symphony, his last three symphonies, 39, 40, 41, are like a kind of beautiful trilogy box set. That was his last sort of orchestral utterance. That is not an opera, not a piece of sacred music. So check that out. The way that he sort of knits six themes together, it's like he has a jigsaw in front of him, or six jigsaw pieces, puts them together to make a picture, takes the picture apart again, and then says, you'll never guess that I can put these pieces back together again and actually make something on 4 dimensions. It's sublime. And I would say the Kyrie of his Mass in D minor.
D minor, yeah.
Oh, D minor, C minor.
Was it one of the two?
D minor Mass. It's quite well known. It's used in a lot of films. It's the perfect example of something that moves. I don't want to send people to sleep here. But as a piece of music, and this is very sort of esoteric language, it moves horizontally and vertically at the same time. There's a sense of the space that that piece of music creates expands in every possible direction, internally and externally. Yeah, so check them out. But you know, you can't go wrong with Mozart. But for me, the last three symphonies they set the stage for the rest of music history, really.
Yeah, they're amazing. They're amazing. You know, I love the piano concertos as well. And I was lucky enough to sing to be in a choir at the time before I went to university. We managed to sing the Requiem actually at Windsor Castle. Actually, that was like my final gig with those guys. And I thought, wow, what a way to go out and just, you know, because I was off to uni in a few more months after that. But that was an experience.
There's a sanctus in that. And I can never quite, I was talking to the opera guys actually when I was doing Amadeus about, because there's a sanctus that is included when Bernstein recorded the Requiem. There was the sanctus that he used, and it's a different sanctus that you sometimes find. Anyway, that I particularly love. But the Requiem is tricky because the second half he didn't really write.
Yeah, it was
and you can sort of hear where it drops off. Like it's absolute rock and roll for the first half, and then it sort of gets away from you a little bit.
Yeah, I think which bar is it? I think there's one of my favorite pieces is the Lacrimosa in there, and it gets to bar 16 or something like that, or like there's like a crescendo, and then it goes boom. And when it goes boom, that at that moment was where, according to history, where he stopped.
Right.
And of course he died because the famous story is that he died before he had a chance to finish it.
Yeah.
And which thing is covered? It's covered in the film more than the play, I think, because the play sort of the final bit. Sorry, slight spoiler, guys. But at the end of the play, it's more like Salieri's kind of moment where he gets engulfed in fame, and then he realizes, and then he recognizes that even though he's going to be remembered forever, he's going to be remembered as the man who killed Mozart. And
whereas in the movie, he sort of ends up working in tandem with him to kind of bring what's left of the Requiem into being. To help his rival in this.
Yeah,
he admires him so much.
Yeah, but there's a lot of dramatic license in both these things. It's like Braveheart. There's a lot of like stuff that's mixed in. It's not historically accurate, but at the same time, it makes one hell of a story. And
well, what's that line about? When the myth is better than the fact, print the myth. I've screwed that up somehow. Anyway,
in the play or in the film?
No. There's a line about that if something has become myth and it serves more of a purpose than the fact, then let's stick to the myth. So maybe the myth is
okay. I need to look that up. I'll look that up later.
Anyway.
Yeah. Oh, mate, I could talk to you about Mozart for ages, honestly. But anyway, let's jump into something which I'm really, really excited to talk to you about today, which was your appearance in Waiting for Godot. Last year at the Haymarket. I saw it twice, actually. It was really, really interesting because a lot of people will get into the nitty-gritty about Beckett for just a second, but essentially it's two characters, Didi and Godot, and they are waiting by a tree for someone called Godot, and that's it. That's the summary of the play. And then there's two people,
and there's a stone.
And there's a stone as
well.
There's a stone. And then two traveling entertainers, or if one of them's an entertainer, well, who knows what they are. Entertainers or people just walk into the scene. One of them is called Lucky, who I know you played, and the other character is whose name has escaped me. Pozzo, yeah. But very quickly, for some reason in the play, they're not called Didi and Godot. They're called Estragon and Vladimir.
Vladimir and Estragon. Well, Vladimir Didi is short for Vladimir, and Gogo is short for Estragon. So that's what they call each other, Gogo and Didi. But they're nicknames for and shortened versions of Vladimir and Estragon. But apparently, someone says in Chinese those words mean brother, and so then everyone goes, "Oh, they're brother," So it's one of those. Again, you think you see the crumbs, and
Well, the thing is, Beckett. There's so many crumbs you can follow in Beckett, but ultimately you'll end up just getting nowhere because no one really can sum up the play. And I think actually, I know that before we came on, I read you this quote. So I think just before we get into it, this is a direct quote from Samuel Beckett on the back of this Faber and Faber version here.
Yeah.
He says, now a lot of people say Godot is God. They think, oh,
Yeah.
they're waiting for God, so they're waiting to die. But actually, Sam Beckett was talking to Ralph Richardson, who was a huge classical actor back in the day, performed with John Gielgud and Laurence Olivier. He said, I told Ralph Richardson that if I meant by Godot, I had meant God, I would have said God and not Godot. This seemed to disappoint him greatly. And so it's immediately you're thinking, what on earth is this play about? So I suppose the first question for today for you, Tom, is what are they waiting for?
They're waiting for Godot.
Yeah, Godot never comes.
Well, they're waiting for him.
Yeah.
No, I think, it's very tempting. And believe me, in rehearsal, we talked about the play a lot, as you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
But we were very well conditioned by our just wonderful director, James Macdonald, who I have an enormous affection for because he was just so wonderful and kind and generous and intelligent and really, really dream director. And he made sure that all of that curiosity that there is goes into the text, line by line, almost word by word, going, what are they saying? What are they saying? What are they saying?
Mm-hmm.
And if you keep your attention on that, you can avoid the trap of by every page or every line going, what the hell is this play about? Because you can it's such a trap. And it is enjoyable to talk about. And indeed, you do come up with your own ideas as is inescapable. The problem is, as soon as you think you've found something that even looks like an answer, oddly enough, you've sort of failed in a strange way. So I know that James, whenever James Macdonald, the director, whenever anyone asked him what is it about, he'd always say it's about two guys waiting for Godot. And that is true. That is what it's about.
That is the play.
That is the play. But I think what we were talking about briefly when I met you a couple of days ago, to give you something, I think what I did land on was that. Well, your question was what was your question? Who are they waiting for? What are they doing?
I don't know. I think so what are they waiting for, or actually just to change that, I suppose. Well, what does this play mean to you? What do you think about this?
I mean, the thing I sort of, notwithstanding trying to avoid falling into that pit. And for listeners who have no idea what this play is about, it really just is watching two people waiting in an empty space for somebody who never arrives. And that's what's happening. What's happening is that they're trying to pass the time. They're trying to not go mad. They're trying to entertain each other. They're trying to do, imagine being stuck in a lift and 1 hour goes by and another hour and another hour and another hour. What do you do? You know, and it's sort of that. But I think, what I did come up with was a little idea that seemed to fit with every moment, that satisfied me a little, was that the one thing these characters, in a seemingly meaningless situation, can't tolerate, the one thing they can't tolerate is meaninglessness itself. And I think that is the very, very human thing in the play, is that meaning is one of the most foundational human characteristics or impulses, and that if something is truly meaningless, it's almost intolerable, and we will make it mean something. We have to. It's and so look, I think some people want to know. They're like, oh, is Godot God? Like, is this person who never shows up, is that God? And yes, look, Beckett has very, very consciously overlaid many, many religious images into the play and ideas. And because his life was, although he wasn't a devout believer, his mother was Catholic, and he went to church, to mass every Sunday. And he was Irish, so he was steeped in a religious worldview, but of course, also in a lot of philosophical and other ideas. So the religious impulse, the human religious impulse itself, is very much, I think, center stage in that show. Doesn't give you any answers, doesn't particularly join any dots for you, but it's just an examination. I think if you're going to dissect humanity in the raw, which I think is part of what he's doing, you can't escape the religious impulse, and whatever your attitude or relationship may be with it. You know, we make something into God, all of us, and the thing at the end, by the end of the play, almost every line seems to sort of come with extra weight, because one of the characters suggests to the other, let's just forget this. Let's just go. Why are we? Why just forget it? Forget Godot. Screw him. Which is what the audience is sort of screaming at them in their head through the whole play. And the other character says no. Words to the effect of, I don't want to butcher the actual text. So we can't do that because he'll punish us. We'll be punished if we reject the idea that he will one day appear. We'll be punished.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it.
It's probably the last page.
Yeah.
So there's something about also, you know, and he very, you know, although Beckett didn't give much away and consciously never really told anyone what it was about. There's no, and very deliberately, I'm sure, never said, oh, it's about this. You know, the piece must speak for itself. He did say, and particularly when I was looking at my character's speech, which we might get onto, I don't know, but my character was essentially a mute. But in one section of the play, he has this very long speech, a sort of seemingly mad outpouring. And Beckett did say in one of his notebooks that this speech was, the tone of it was about living on an impossible earth under an indifferent sky. And that phrase really stayed with me, an impossible earth under an indifferent sky. And I think that's part of the sort of tortured nature of the play, is that he can't bring himself to say there is no God, but he can't be entirely sure that God really gives a shit either. So he's stuck, you know, he's stuck in this thing. And, you know, there are many ideas that it's purgatory. You know, he that's the closest suggestion he's given, is that in the sort of Dante's Inferno, in the idea of heaven and hell and a middle place where you burn off the debt of your sins, you know, it's a vision of that. It absolutely lines up with that. But again, as soon as you say that, you're sort of diminishing the play, because it is rather like Mozart. I can't tell you what Mozart's Symphony Number 39 is about, and my efforts to do so would be to sort of drag it down to my level. It lives on a plane of its own indivisibleness. It is what it is, and that's the beauty of it, because I think everyone who came to see that show would all have had, from the inside of their own skin, a different view. We had people saying, oh, it's about this. You know, one person said, oh, Vladimir's dead and Estragon's alive and he's keeping him alive as a ghost. That's it. I've fixed it. And you're like,
no, you haven't.
Not that at all. But for you, if that's how it works, great. You know, if you came to the play suffering grief, or if you came to the play suffering joy in your life, you know, whatever lens your life is giving you is the lens through which you see that play.
Yeah.
So, you know, it'll mean different things to different people. And I think the magic of it is that it stands up to all viewers. You know, it deals with foundational human emotions of frustration and envy and hope and despair and self-hatred and shame and etc. etc.
Yeah, I feel like, just before I get on to like what my reading of it, anyway, this is just my opinion, but I remember hearing a story that part of the inspiration for this, I might be getting this wrong, but I heard somewhere that one of the inspirations for this piece was Beckett was based off the Second World War, when it was East and West Germany, where the two of them, if you were caught watching like it was almost as it was horrendous. Like apparently, if you were caught watching TV that was only aired in West Germany, you'd be punished or something
Mhm.
like that, or you'd be whatever it was. But you would not be in a lot of you'd not be in the government's good books. Let's put it
Yeah.
that way. But there used to be this sort of tunneling system between the two, between East and West
Mhm.
Germany. And I heard that Beckett's inspiration was just seeing people in the dark in these tunnels, just waiting for their next job, and
Yeah.
he would just observe them and think, what did we do here?
Well,
We just
it
wait.
is undoubtedly, it is undoubtedly of its time.
Mm,
It's a post-Holocaust play for
mm,
sure. The visions of utter destruction and emptiness. The world, the human race, was having to deal with the aftermath of the Holocaust and the nuclear attacks
yeah,
on Japan, and that is where this play sits. It's not just that, but it is certainly that. And I heard another story that because Beckett was in France during the war and worked in the resistance,
mm,
and there was in the southern part of France, I think, and there was a moment where he and another comrade had to wait for this guy to appear. And of course, in the resistance, they're living outdoors in secret under a bush and whatever. And apparently, he was inspired by, as well as what you said, just the thing of having to wait for someone and having no way of knowing if this guy is going to show up. And is this guy real? And as time goes on, you start to question, did I hear that right? What do we do? We're in the right place. And
yeah,
so, I can well imagine that set his mind going as well.
yeah. Because I feel like I don't know my reading of it. I don't think probably a few people would probably say the same thing. Or maybe I'm just repeating what another theory here. But it's almost like you said something about earlier. Is that life is like its meaninglessness. Like you look at some people look at human existence through a really bleak and really kind of depressed lens. They
Yeah.
think, what is life? We just sit on this
Yeah.
big rock we call Earth. We just potter around for 70, 80, 90 years if we're lucky. And then what? What? I suppose some people say this play is asking a question: what is life? Is life about waiting? Is life meaningless? Is life just waiting by a tree with a stone, waiting for someone called Godot? And of course, this it's not that. Of course, there's a lot more to life, of
Yeah.
course, than that. But I think because you're dealing with Beckett here, so he's literally. But just very quickly, I mean, the play's a masterpiece because you can't define it.
No.
You cannot define this play. Is it a comedy? No. Is it a tragedy? No. Is it circumspect? Is it social commentary? Well, you could argue it is social commentary, but people go, no, it's not that at all. It's indescribable.
Well, I think I said
Yeah.
to you when I saw you, I think one of the beautiful, as I was saying, if you come and watch it once or twice, or I had the great pleasure of being in it 8 times a week, and so you're, and I'm sure Ben and Lucian in particular, having to do that night after night after night. It changes all the time, but if you've been in it long enough, suddenly at the very end, where one character says to the other, we'll hang ourselves tomorrow, that they come to the agreement that actually hanging themselves is going to be difficult. Because if one of them hangs themselves, who's going to help me out doing, And so they put it off. They say, well, we'll hang ourselves tomorrow. And, at first reading, this is sort of the bleakest. You think, my God, these characters' existences are so bleak. This is what they cling to. But funny enough, by the end of the run, I would always see that line as going, oh, they do have hope. They're not hopeless. They can hang them. They've got something to look forward to. They have a purpose. And I think that's what I mean. No one would wish that existence on anyone, but
No.
it does almost give you an optimism for humanness, humanity, because we will find purpose, we will find meaning, because if we don't, we sort of cease to be human. That was something I was sort of left with. But my character that I played, Lucky, he's as close to dehumanized as it's possible to be. So it was very challenging trying to sort of figure out how to embody that and how to play that. And myself and John Slinger, the wonderful Jonathan Slinger, who played Pozzo, the characters of Pozzo and Lucky, who are the pair that he and I played, are ostensibly master-slave dynamic. Pozzo, played by John Slinger brilliantly, is this gregarious, loud, brash, showing off, arrogant, but full of contradictions character, the master. And then the slave, the servant, is Lucky, who's this sort of walking zombie, really is the best way to describe it. Broken person. Anyway, but in terms of, you know, what humanity that character has left. And then in the second half, when they reappear, there's a strange suggestion that the dependency has been shifted, and actually the slave is sort of caring for the master, who has become debilitated, has become blind for an unknown reason. And there's a lot of, I mean, I did enjoy, I tell you what, I wouldn't dare to sort of go, oh, the play's about this, the play's about that. But you do notice patterns, and I think that's very deliberate. You know, the patterns of the pairs. There's Vladimir and Estragon are two men, and Pozzo and Lucky are two men who are sort of joined together, and potentially versions, or, you know, alternate versions of each other. And there's mention of Cain and Abel, who are the first brothers, the first pair, you know, if you like, after Adam and Eve. And there's mentions of the two men that are crucified either side Christ. And Beckett is constantly showing you a pattern. He's not telling you what it means. He's not telling you, here's the answer. But he's just saying we deal in patterns, we deal in symbols, because we make things mean something. You know, on stage is a tree and a stone. And Ben's character, Vladimir, I never remember which one's which. One of them is the tree and is more preoccupied with the tree, and the other one is more preoccupied with the stone. And this idea that one of them is very grounded, which one is it? And just in the moment, and I'm hungry and I want to sleep, and the other one is concerned with ethereal issues, like a tree pointing up to the sky. And so the character that Ben played was really concerned with the meaning of it all, and the character that Lucien played was interested in his feet and his shoes and whether he was going to eat and whether he was going to sleep. And so, you know, anyway, it's a bottomless pit, and but not just anyone could write that. You know, you try and write a play that no one can figure out and see if it's any good. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know.
It's actually a really hard thing to do.
I don't know how anyone does it. So I don't know how he did it, but he evidently figured out that actually two people waiting for something that isn't going to happen is actually incredibly absorbing. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. And of course, I think there's another thing to throw in there is how you try and pass the time with humor, or just trying to make yourself laugh, or distraction, I think, is another big word in there as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, because Lucien, there's one point where Ben Whishaw, I think, who had the opening line of the play? Do you know who?
When we are again at last?
Sorry. First try, nothing to be done. He says,
nothing to be done.
Yeah, so I don't know who said that every night, but basically Ben Wishaw's character runs off, and then Lucien, I remember, did this thing where he was just like, "You going for a piece?"
Yes,
like that. And another point, he was, I think, John. What was his name? Sorry, Pozzo,
yeah.
Pozzo, yeah. Said was lying down, and he said, I can't remember the context, but Lucien's character is going, I bet you I can pronounce, like, I can predict when he's going to say it, or just say help next. And he turns out, and he goes, now, and he goes, help, and he goes, got it in one.
That's right, yes.
Yeah, you know, and then a part of it, I remember seeing that, I think the second time around, and he's thinking, oh, I've got it in one. Oh, now the distraction's gone. The game's over.
He's trying to guess what his name is. That's right. He's trying to guess what his name is.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like, response, yes, and that speaks to, we will make a ritual out of anything. You know, repetition is this huge, and you know, in terms of it being about distraction, and we talked a lot about this, is that, you know, and I'm as much a victim and perpetrator of this as anyone, but we must be the most distracted age of humanity ever. You know, how much do we distract ourselves?
I know.
To avoid what? I don't know, boredom or I don't know what we're trying to avoid.
These things, you know what I mean? Yeah.
It's terrible. I'm
I
a
know.
bit better than I used to be. I'm COVID. I was terrible, hours and hours on that bloody thing.
Yeah.
And watching just trash, really. Yeah, we are. And so in a way, as pitiful as they are as characters, at least they're not distracting themselves, turning their brains to mush. But yeah, no, for sure, definitely. I think everyone, and I think in a way that's partly, we were very lucky. We had a wonderful audience response. We had wonderful audiences, and people really, really liked it in a way that I don't know. You can never be sure with that play. I think people are really thirsty not to be dumbed down to. If you assume an intellectual level of your audience, I think they'll really appreciate it. Yeah, there's so much dumbing down, there's so much talking down, there's so much people won't be able to figure this out. Yeah, they will. That's people have,
everyone's got an opinion. Everyone has
yes. And if something has to be explained to you, then it's probably not. It probably hasn't got the audience as its first priority. Do you see what I mean? If something needs, a translation book to go, see, I should have understood this first.
Yeah.
I think something that has the audience as its first priority won't do that. It won't. Yeah, sure. There'll be people walking out there going, "Oh, I feel like I needed to have known more." And that is the only disclaimer I wish there was, is to say to people, you don't need to know anything more than what you know. Yeah. You could be Richard bloody Dawkins, or you could be a 16-year-old who's coming with his drama class. Everyone's entry level is exactly what it should be for that play.
Yeah.
And yes, there are some things like the imagery we're talking about, and he makes historical, artistic, and literary references all the time. Fine, if you get them, cute. If you don't get them, it doesn't mean the play falls apart at all.
No. And I think also, if you spoon feed people and they go, okay, yeah, I know what this is about, I don't need to pay attention anymore, and then distraction comes in. Whereas if you don't give them that, then you've got their attention.
Yeah,
absolutely. You want what you want. They're engaged.
Yes.
They want to know what it's about. They want to formulate their own opinions. And you've got them in the palm of your hand.
Well, also, you can't, sorry to interrupt you, but you can't outsource your reaction to it. No. AI won't be able to tell you what the play is about and what you should get from it. That cannot be done, and so it has to be your brain in that moment in relationship with the play with no outside assistance whatsoever,
Yeah.
Notwithstanding, you could read up about all the things we're talking about, but in the main, it's a very personal relationship between the person who shows up and the piece, and that's what felt so alive in that theatre in a way that I haven't experienced. What I'm trying to say is that the listening in that auditorium was incredibly special.
Yeah.
Incredibly special. I felt privileged to be on that stage with those actors and that text. That was a real career highlight for me, big time.
Yeah. It was a fantastic show, and I'm very pleased to have seen it. I've been very lucky to see it twice, and funny enough, it reminds me of something Tony Hopkins said once. It is related to this idea of attention and stuff, but he's talked about acting techniques. He remember speaking to Laurence Olivier once, and he said, Olivier said to him, "Don't show too much. Whatever you do not show everything that you're thinking. Obviously, you know what you're thinking, you know what's going through in your body, but don't show it. Allow the audience to look into it, and then you've got your attention." And of course, with this play, it's like, you've got all these different ideas. Is it existentialism? Is it crisis? Is it the end of the world? Is it apocalypse? Is it famine? Is it post-nuclear disaster? As you said, it was written at the time shortly after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. What is, but that's the beauty of it. Then you've got people literally shaking. I bet if Beckett was still alive now, I bet a lot of people would go up to him and literally grab him by the shoulders and shake him and say, "What the hell is this play about?" And I bet you that would probably be one of the greatest compliments, I think.
Well, it's more that I think he has refused to give up the possibility of the mystery. Say you did sit there and really told yourself you'd figured it out. You've gone, oh, it's about this, which is a fool's errand. But say you did, it would be the emptiest victory of all. You know,
it's like, now what? Yeah.
Yeah, now what? Have you escaped some, you know, human condition? No, you haven't. You know, and so I think the mystery, the ambiguity, whatever that is, the warmth of that fire, the reason people huddle around that play is because it's mysterious. And I think if you were able to somehow remove the mystery by figuring it out, you'd have somehow put the fire out. I don't know how else to say it. And I think he's protected it from that happening because he refuses to leave really any clues. And in the way that Godot will never arrive, but that in a way is also part of it. It's like the fact that we are trying to fix it is the condition he's pointing to. Oh, I need to disenchant the power of this play in order that I feel like I've conquered it like a mountain. It's like, oh, well, good for you.
Yeah.
But what does that make you? You want to denude life of its mysterious quality? You want to, I don't know, like, know why a rainbow is beautiful? No, that's not how it works. And I do love that in this digitized AI whatever age, people are still thirsty for that something that we've lost, which is a sort of understanding that there's more to life than the answer to everything.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's just, I think if Beckett, he probably heard that many times, but I think that he would be like, job done. Tick that box. You know, it's brilliant. I want to talk about your character as well, Lucky. I mean,
Oh, sure.
he's talk about a tough existence. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, first of all, I mean, for anyone who's watching this, by the way, you have an epic monologue like towards the end of the first act. I mean, I've got it here. This is more like it's all condensed down, but it's just relentless, honestly.
PTSD just looking at it.
But how did you? We'll get on to Lucky and who he is in just a second. But how do you learn such huge? I mean, you probably get this off. I know we get this all the time. How do you learn your lines? But it's like, but it's just chock-a-block this thing, and it's you spoke it at the speed of thought as well, literally going bang, 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 bang. So how did you do it?
It's just repetition.
Yeah.
It really, I mean, you know, I could sort of say there's some great art to it. You've just got to keep going at it over and over and over and over and over. And when I learned that I'd got the part, and I was greatly pleased by that. And I don't usually do this. You know, the minute I found out I learned it, and I don't know how long I had before rehearsals. It was not that long, maybe a couple of months. I just thought, I have got to do work on this every day. I have to be word perfect day one of rehearsal, because if I'm in rehearsal and that speech is still a stranger to me, I won't be able to do what I need to do. So I just went at it. And you know, technically, I very much divided it into colored sections. And with highlighters, I was like, well, that's the section I need to learn. This section, maybe 4 lines, 5 lines each. Because when you look at the whole thing by itself, you're just like, it's like someone giving you tale of some great novel, War and Peace, and going, here, read this in a weekend. You couldn't. You'd go mad. So I had to very much, you know, sort it into chunks. And in learning it, I did have to use a lot of visual imagery. I almost don't know how to describe them. There were sort of wheels and there were windmills.
Like cues or something.
Yes, just visual cues that once this circle had been completed, then you go to another sort of landscape, as it were, and go, oh, just so it's in a section. You go, this section is the section where there's all this sort of repetition, and then there's this. And it naturally does wave between... I mean, you know, if you read it at first glance, it just seems to be just gobbledygook. But after a while, there's a train of thought in there.
Yeah,
a hell of a lot of tangents for sure. But you just have to sort of give it a skeleton and go, where's he ending? Where's he the hardest bit to learn actually was the end, because that is almost pure repetition without, it's almost as if that's when he gets to the kind of thought process where he could still be doing it today if you hadn't turned the tap off, if you see what I mean. It seems to be that it's not, it's just water sort of flowing. So yeah, just repetition, and with the goal that it's possible to do it word perfectly. I don't know if I ever did do it word perfectly. Maybe I did. I don't really know. But I pretty near as damn it did. There may be a couple of which or ways or what, little small joining words that may have. But I like to think that I was able to do it word perfectly. I don't know if I did. But that should be the aim. Rather than be a prisoner of the speech, just go, well, I'm aiming for this. I'm aiming for getting it right.
Yeah. What are you talking about in this, by the way?
Oh, well, that given the existence as uttered forth in the public. He starts off talking about a personal God. And he starts talking about suffering and the nature of suffering. And then he gets into, God, I mean, if you'd got me in January, I would have been much clearer on this. It's sort of it's starting to sort of blur slightly. He's sort of saying, he's listing distractions, actually. Stuff talks about sports and suffering, that in spite of certain things, we do waste and pine. And he's it's sort of about entropy. He's saying that in spite of a personal God and in spite of great achievements, the human condition is one of waste and an inevitable journey towards death. But then he goes on this enormous tangent, which is so big it might even actually be the thing itself and not a tangent. At the end, he goes into a sort of rapture. There's a lot of images about, at first it's all sort of psychobabble, regurgitated academia that maybe one day in the past made sense to him, but now is sort of broken and fractured. But then he seems to get onto a lane near the end where he talks about the sea and fire and the skull and the stones and the earth and the cold and the deep. And suddenly all these words are about the beginning of time and the end of time and the beginning of the earth and the end of the earth. And it's, to me, in my opinion, I felt like that was a sort of a rapture. He'd plugged into a place where he wasn't fractured, but he was unable to put into words that he was sort of experiencing the earth and the creation of the earth, or something like that. He starts to talk about the cold and the sea and fire and the skull, and those images suddenly become incredibly vivid. Whereas before we've been sort of listening to a sort of tumble dryer of strange fragments of, I don't know, academia and thoughts of philosophy and quoting this person and that person. And then suddenly it becomes something quite almost like a kind of prophet, Anyway, but that's very much the tone. It's hard to say. Again, it's a bit like music. It's hard to say, what does that note mean? What does that chord mean? I don't know. It's a very, 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 very poetic. And there's no punctuation. It's a piece of word music or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it was very rhythmic from how you played it as well. It was sort of, yeah.
I think I probably needed to put in certain rhythm just in order to, it's one of those things where I needed it to be sort of the bones of it to be the same every night, just to get from one section to the one square to the next. But from one night to the next, one phrase might suddenly ping out, or one idea or one image might seem incredibly the there's a bit where he repeats the word the skull, I think about 6 times, the skull, the skull, the skull, the skull, the skull. And there was one night where I sort of had this idea in the midst of the sort of madness of the play. I felt like he was saying to the members of the audience, you're all going to die. One day you will just be a skull and nothing else. You know, that he was looking out and going, don't you understand what I'm trying to tell you? You know, you're sitting here watching a play, you know, none of us get out of this alive. You know, it's, and, you know, one night that will be the thing that sort of charges things. Whether the audience understood that that's where I, as Lucky, was coming from, I don't know. But it was important that, I mean, James, again, was very, I think this was the genius of James McDonald, our director, that I think when I first saw the speech, I'm like, well, it's all verbal diarrhea, basically. And he said, no, we have to make perfect sense of every single piece of this speech. I was like, what? How do you make sense of this?
It's like, no,
because if we don't, then we don't stand a chance of this speech being the moment in the play that it needs to be. And that to Lucky, to the character saying this speech, yes, he's, you know, he's held back by his condition of waste and, you know, as we say, the sort of zombie state. But to him, he knows at least what he's trying to express. And that, yes, sure enough, when you sit down for long enough with a wonderful director like James, you go, okay, what does this mean? What does that mean? What does this mean? What's this phrase? What's he talking about? Like, da, da, da. And sure enough, you go, oh, yeah, no, he's making a point. He's absolutely making a point.
Yeah.
The audience may or may not get on board with that, but that's sort of neither here nor there. What's important is that, without sounding too pretentious, that you assume that the character is engaging in truthful speech, no matter how distorted, broken, and upside down. It's an impulse of it's a true impulse of Lucky. He's not trying to lie to anyone. He's not trying to fool anybody. He's trying to express something of great importance.
Yeah, and so, you know, you just reminded me of, you were talking about the questions from what's his name, Mike Leigh, or Mr. Turner. You know, asking all these questions like, well, what's their great grandmother's name? What's their backstory? Where do they come from? But if you've got someone like Lucky, how do you do that?
Well, I mean, all of this stuff being very forensic. You know, some actors don't work like that. Some actors, you know, will work on pure instincts and stuff like this. But, you know, I like to have a combination of the two. Look, I didn't go that deep into Lucky. I mean, it's strange in a way, because you're like, well, the actor might end up knowing more about Lucky than Lucky does, because he's in such a condition. But what John Slinger, who played Pozzo, we very much got together and said, right, who the hell are these people to each other? What is their history? And we sort of came up with a plausible narrative that suited us and that made sort of some sense, that they had had a relationship in the past, and how Lucky had got to where he got to. I mean, I sort of hesitate to say what that is, because it's a little bit like, you know, seeing the sausage being made. But what I will say is, what I switched on to was that it was around the time. Now, when was the play written? Was it 57, 58?
Let's have a look.
Is it 58? Anyway, thereabouts.
1952 is written.
Oh, 52. Beg its pardon.
Yeah.
Right. So Stalin died in 57, I think, and I think he would have been very interested in, as George Orwell was, in what was going on under Stalin, people being sort of unpersoned, or at least, you know, with everything happening in the middle of that century, what was it to be, have your humanity taken away by an ideology, have everything taken away, have great status taken away. You know, these characters are all characters that have had something taken away, you know, and left with nothing. And so we sort of thought, well, okay, if this person when he's given the opportunity to speak, gives a kind of broken down lecture. Maybe he was a great intellect. Maybe he was someone who was a Renaissance man. And some terrible, even though the word is quite overused these days, some appalling trauma has been dealt to him, such that, I put it this way, I didn't think his state that he was in was illness, because you get into a very, very dodgy area where you go, oh, he's got Alzheimer's, oh, he has a physical disability, or a mental condition, because you just don't want to be on stage going, oh, I'm acting this condition or that condition, because so that avenue just seems very unappealing for all sorts of reasons. So I thought, okay, well then how does somebody become zombified through experience or through something horrendous that's happened to him, or and so if something's written in the 50s, as we said, and these images from the Holocaust and bits of information coming out of Soviet Union or whatever, you think maybe this person has been subjected to some unspeakable torture, or I don't know. I don't quite know, but
there's so many things you could attribute it to, because like in the aftermath of the Holocaust, again, nuclear war, nuclear bombs, sorry,
there was something about the paralysis he had, and the sort of that it asks for a kind of a gaping face with eyes wide open, mouth wide open, just sort of drooling, frozen. It's almost as, I love this phrase, to go back to classical music, it's this wonderful Russian composer called Shostakovich, which some people may have heard of, who wrote under Stalin, and it was a complicated figure and was restricted by living under Stalin, but there's a wonderful documentary where a friend of his says that he was the only composer who looked at the 20th century with his eyes wide open. And there's something about that if you can really observe the horror that most of us would wish to recoil from, what is the cost on your on you? Or almost like, in a slightly lighter tone, like, you remember, I don't know if you ever saw the first television version of Stephen King's It, that terrible clown monster.
What was his name?
Tim Curry,
yes.
There's a bit in that where one of the kids looks at him and suffers this like unspeakable satanic horror, and he turns white immediately, and his hair turns white, and he's frozen in this kind of, it's sort of that idea of he's been exposed to something unspeakably changing in a horrifying way. Anyway, so there was sort of ideas about that.
It's such an interesting area. I mean, we've been talking for a while about Waiting for Godot, and you can find so much to say about a play where nothing happens. And it's, again, it goes back to what you said on Monday outside the Donmar and everything when I met you there. And we as humans, we try to attach something, we try to find meaning in something, because it's almost like nothing to us can be, this might be a bit of a broad statement, but like nothing can be meaningless. Even though the things we say, oh, that's meaningless, that doesn't matter, but there is always going to be meaning there. It's maybe not to you, but to somebody else, and I don't know.
Well, there's a hierarchy of meaning. Some things mean more to us than others, and you hope that a culture is built around a general agreement of what the most meaningful things are, what the things that are at the top of the tree mean. Truth, goodness, beauty. I would hope, are things that we can broadly agree on.
Of course, yeah. Even in these times.
Well, it's humanity has been through some pretty rocky times. That's why I think the distraction and the phone such a sort of almost demonic presence, because I think it distracts us from the fact that actually I think we do fundamentally hold those things true, in a unifying way. But there's a little voice in our phone telling us not to, telling us to, no, you've got to disagree with this person and disagree with that person. Set us all against each other, Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, X, or what was Twitter it was called, can really get in the bin. As far as I'm concerned, it's
just outrage porn.
It's a cesspool of negativity, narcissism, and all the isms you can think of. Sadly, still there's racism on there. There's sexism. There's
all you ever hear about it is how it ends people's careers as well. I don't know if it does anyone any good.
No. One message of 50 characters
15 years ago that you deleted, and it can be dragged up, and if you'd said it at a party to a group of friends 15 years ago and then changed your ways or whatever, life deserves people second chances. But if you can drag that stuff out of the vault, and anyway
I know that's a big conversation, isn't it? I just got a few more things left for you, Tom. So before we finish, I have to talk to you about One Man, Two Guvnors.
Yes, please.
Yeah, because I saw you guys, because before I went to the West End, you did a UK tour, I remember at the time.
5 weeks, yes.
Yes, and I saw you guys at the Aylesbury Waterside.
Did you?
I did, yes.
Very good.
It was so long story short, it was we had to write a review for a theatre piece for A-level drama.
Right.
And we were lucky because we got to see you guys who were in Aylesbury, which is only up the road actually, just from Hertfordshire. And it was one of the best experiences I ever had in the theatre. It was just amazing, that show. I mean, it's people think like slapstick, it's out of date, or it's not funny anymore, but the way you guys did it, but of course it was based on A Servant of Two Masters, wasn't it? The Commedia dell'arte practice from Italian theatre from years ago. And you played the butler Alfie, and I had to say you were the highlight of the show. So, you really, really were, because it's funny, you can find a lot of comparisons between Alfie and Lucky. No, not in terms because obviously the two different plays, two different circumstances.
It's pretty similar.
Very similar. And I haven't said this already, but the way you physically do your roles is amazing, man, because you really had this physical stuff about you. Because there was one moment in particular where, because Alfie had a pacemaker, didn't he?
That's right. Yes.
And the lead, Francis Henshaw, played by James Corden, turned up. I can turn it up a couple of notches, and you just went, whoa, and you threw yourself across the stage. And then what's his name? Ollie
Chris. Yes, he has to stop me with a cricket bat rather violently.
He hits you with a cricket bat as well. But what was that?
I still have that. Hang on. I still have that cricket bat.
Oh, have you still got it? Okay.
I think I might still have it.
Cool. I'll be back.
The only thing.
Yeah.
This is the only thing I kept.
You got it
from the show. That's the cricket bat.
Wow.
There it is.
Yeah. How did you play that every night? How did you play the?
God, I don't know. Well, I was younger. It was 2011. So what is that? 14 years ago.
Oh my God.
Bloody hell. So I'm now 46. So I was 34. So I mean, is that right? No. Well, anyway, my maths is trouble. 32.
32.
No, I don't know.
No, wait, 2011, 2025, so 14
years ago.
14 years ago, yeah.
I'm now 46. So yes, I was 32.
32.
God, my maths is absolutely boring. Too many theatre trips. Not enough maths. So I was younger. And I mean, the simple fact of it was that it was taxing and challenging physically, and I just had to get on with it and make sure I didn't get injured. There was a lot of padding going on, knees and the small of my back, and steel cap. The funny thing was I had steel cap boots because there was so much kicking of the door. Every time the door hit me in the head, I would kick the bottom of the door. And I started obviously damaging the door because I had these steel toe cap boots to make sure my toes were protected. So they put a steel plate on the bottom of the door so I stopped damaging it. But I was like, well, now I'm just kicking steel.
Yeah, and that hurts.
I was like, oh God, this is not going to help me. So that certainly took a battering as well. It was, but you know, it was so rewarding in every possible way. It was worth the cost. It wasn't until, so we did the national for a few months, and then a 5-week tour, of which Aylesbury was one of the stops, and then a few months in the West End. By the time we got to New York, I was really in need of some care, and luckily there was a very good sports therapist, sort of physiotherapist, just up the road from the theatre in New York, and I did very much rely on her. I think I went to her once a week. There's no way I could do that now. No way.
Really?
Oh God, yeah, no. It would be murder. It would just be. I would. The injuries would just be. I don't know, be melodramatic. Maybe I could do it for a short period of time, but for the length of time we did it, I mean, it was over a year and a half. Yeah, no, the youth that I had then, that I do not have now, was very much necessary to do that. Ironically, well, the funny thing is, when I watch it now, because we saw it, they popped it on YouTube, you know, over COVID.
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah,
there's everything, and you know, I'm playing this character who's 86, but looking back at it, you know, 10 years after the fact or whatever, I look at it now and think, God, I look so young, you know. But you know, obviously, you know,
the makeup.
The idea was that I didn't look young, that I looked old. But no, it was a great character to sort of hide in, because I think we wanted the audience to kind of. It helped that nobody knew who I was at that point. Well, not that I'm some great famous star, but what I mean is, I was sort of coming from obscurity, really, and I think we wanted people to go, "Who the hell is that? Where have they found this creature? Like, is he 86?
Yeah,
or is he what?" And they were very clear that I shouldn't come out of character in the. Well, there was a conversation about whether I should come out of character for the curtain call, because I think we wanted to keep just the idea that, like, who is this guy? Because he only has about, I don't know how many lines he has. It's not many, maybe 20 something lines.
Oh yeah.
But it's a very, very, very physical performance, and I think we just want, and you know, as time went on, I think almost everyone, to some smaller or lesser extent, comes out of character a little bit, because the style of the show was very much a wink to the audience, and we're in a theatre, this is a play.
Yeah,
some of it will go, it might be a play that goes wrong, you know, or whatever. We were there first. No, I take nothing away from Mischief, but he couldn't come out of character. As soon as if there was any moment where I just let the audience know it's an actor in here, folks,
and
that
suddenly
character,
it's gone.
It'd be gone. It would, all the work, all the humor would be gone. He had to absolutely, every other person on stage was like, yeah, I'm an actor, I'm playing a character, we're in a play. He was not in a play. He was working at the restaurant. He was trying to serve the meals. It was his first day, you know.
Yeah, it was his first day. Yeah,
that was such a great.
That was great. Yeah. That was a great. I remember that. He says, "Oh, you won't guess this. What? It's his first day," and the whole place just went, "Whoa!"
Well, the wonderful David Benson, my dear friend David Benson, who played the other butler, introduces him. I can't remember it exactly, but it's like he's, you know, hard of hearing, he's blind, he's got a pacemaker. It's this, all this litany of, you know, defections, defaults, as it were. And James says, anything else? Oh yeah, one other thing, it's his first day. huge laugh, and there he's standing going, and it's just the joy of the sort of the audience going, what is in store? How is he going to deal with this plate or the soup or these stairs, etc.? And it was just wonderful.
Yeah, I just remembered one bit. I can't remember the actor's name, but I think it was, hopefully I'm getting this right, it's the guy who had the tagline, "Yes, Parkhurst," that one. I can't remember his name.
Oh, Trevor.
Yeah, I think there's a moment where he come in at one point and you're behind the door. I remember Alfie takes some food or something into one of the rooms on stage left, and then he obviously can't get out to the door. Then he goes to the door, opens it, and then you're just there looking out, and he goes, "Jesus Christ!"
Yeah, that was a very lovely. Yes, the idea that he's delivered what he needed to deliver in that room, but on returning to the closed door, he's confronted with something that he cannot overcome.
Yeah.
And it's only when someone opens the door that they see him. Yeah, that was one of the first big laughs. But the big laugh when he falls down the stairs for the first
I
time.
was about to say that. I was about to say, oh my God.
It was so beautiful. Look, I've told this before, but like because sometimes people say, when was the moment when you guys knew this show was like, going to be, it was a hit, or, because it was such a phenomenon, that show. It's hard to, it's now quite a while ago, but it mustn't be forgotten. It was just a sensation, and I'm so lucky to be part of it. But that first stunt where my character, this doddery waiter, comes to the top of the stairs, James's character takes the tray I'm holding off me, and the physical gag is the idea that the counterweight of the thing I'm holding is the only thing that's keeping me standing. So as soon as he removes it and I'm at the top of the stairs, that's it. I fall like a tree.
That's it. You're done.
And you fall into this chasm beneath the stage. So to the audience, it looks like I'm just disappearing down this stairwell, which has very quickly been replaced with a crash mat as soon as I reached the top. It was all this sort of... And when I landed on my back on this crash mat, it was this huge, big... I mean, the reason that was so funny, it was a shock. It was such a shock. People just didn't expect it. And myself and David Benson and Ollie Chris, we were down in the substage area because we all made our entrances up these stairs. I smacked onto the crash mat, and this laugh, like in the movie The Shining, when the elevator doors open and this great flood of blood.
Yes.
It's the only way I can describe it. This wave of sound crashed onto the wall and down into this hole. And we were sort of inside this laugh that had sort of emerged. I don't know. We looked at each other and just thought, okay, this is like nothing we've ever experienced in any theatre. The enormity of hysteria. And Cal McChrystal, the wonderful comedy director, made sure that these very physical laughs were all joined up, and Nick Heitner and Richard Bean, the writer, everyone, but Cal in particular, in that scene, at least, we really collaborated a lot on going, what's the funniest version? What's the most outrageous version? What's the most violent thing we can do to Alfie? And it was sort of theatre heaven.
Yeah.
I
mean, that's one hell of a feeling, isn't it? Because did you land on like a sofa or like some like
no, there's stairs. There was a staircase that was invisible to the audience because it was under the stage. So when you got to the top of the staircase, you were on stage. As soon as the top two stairs were fixed, and the rest of the flight of stairs, I don't know, about 10 stairs, was movable. Okay. So as soon as I got onto step 9, it had to, because I went step 9, step 10, and fell. So as soon as I 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, as soon as I'm on step 9, stage manager to get that staircase out of the way. Yeah. And it was on a trolley, and the crash mat was on the other side of the trolley.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest act of trust because I couldn't see it. And it's the only time I was sort of played my diva card, because we had a new stage hand. And I said to him, I said, you can get anything else wrong. This has to work exactly as it should be, because if it isn't, I'll break my back.
Yeah.
This has to happen on time.
Yeah.
And of course we drilled it and practiced it. Of course we did. But, I just made it very, very clear that this was a matter of life and death. And but it worked beautifully, because I would roll off the mat. They'd replace the staircase immediately, and Ollie would shoot up it. So the image to the audience was absolutely that this was a staircase the entire time. People kept asking me, how do you fall down those stairs? I say, I don't fall downstairs.
No, I fell into
I just fall back onto a crash mat, which is pretty far down, but,
Yeah. Oh, mate, it definitely worked. It was just, but I can't imagine that feeling when you're falling down. Obviously, you're still in Alfie mode, and then you just hear the sound just hit you like you said, that wave of like from The Shining, just that wave of laughter just hitting you as you fall down there. And like you said just now, like you all looked at each other and gone, okay, we've got something here.
Oh,
We've
more than
got
something.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We and you know, it's funny that thing you said earlier about the advice. I think you said it was Olivier giving to Hopkins. Not that I would dare to compare myself to either of them, but just that idea of don't show everything. Because after that joke, every time I came up the stairs, then there's this enormous expectation, and the humor became more and more ratcheted up the less we suggested that it would happen again. Just what I mean, it was just a suggestion that it might happen again, had the audience, you know, on their feet, you know. And it was like rock and roll. I mean, I remember when we did the NT Live, when they do the broadcast, they have a wonderful tradition there. I don't know if they still do it, that when they do NT Live, certainly in the summer, they would have a big screen outside in that lovely courtyard on the South Bank by the river, outside the National Theatre.
Yeah.
It's happening inside, it's being filmed, and there's a big screen for free. People can sit on the deck chairs and watch it. And they say, well, there's a bit of a tradition when we do the NT Live, we'll take a bow on stage, and then we'll all run outside through the foyer as a cast in front of the screen, and we'll take a bow to the audience who have gathered to watch it.
Oh, wow.
Like, oh, that's cute. That's nice.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I don't know if they still do that, but anyway, they did.
Yeah.
And
at the time, they did.
At the time, we ran out, and I tell you what, it was like what Glastonbury must feel like. It was like, standing from that point of view, it was a sea of people. You couldn't see the South Bank. It was just people. Up the stairs to Waterloo Bridge, it was just people. There were people on Waterloo Bridge lining up, watching from the... I don't know how many people, but they were going wild. And we all just looked at each other going, this is nuts. It was such a phenomenon, and so lucky. And to sort of circle back to what we were sort of touching on at the beginning, I remember thinking, you know, I want to work as an actor for the rest of my life as long as I can. But I remember thinking, if nothing else happens, I got to where I wanted to get to.
Yeah.
And then some, you know, in a way that I could have never dreamt. But here I am, you know, at the National Theatre, which is the place that I'd idolized and always wanted to go to. And in this thing that could not be more creatively fulfilling and fun. And, you know, with wonderful friends. And yeah, it was, I'm very, very lucky. I wish every actor could experience something like that, you know, in their careers. Yeah, it was very special.
Yeah, it sounds like an unbelievable moment. It's like,
it was, the whole thing. And then New York, then we were off to Broadway, and then all these first nights, you know, it was wild. Yeah.
You know, funny enough, I think someone in New York was being a bit naughty and actually filmed you guys do your curtain call on the final performance in New York.
Oh, right, yeah.
And but none of the show or anything. Literally, just guys coming out and taking your bows. And I remember, I think you'd broken Alfie's character by that point. It's like, right, I am Tom now. I am an actor now. And did you come out in an I Love New York shirt?
I did, yes. I remember it very well. I mean, you know, it's very sentimental when you watch these clips these days on Instagram of last nights and people leaving shows and stuff. And, you know, if you're not in it, it can all seem rather sentimental. But when you're in it, it's incredibly, it's just part of that thing. And I do remember that was the last show we were going to do. It had changed my life, simply put. And yeah, I'd fallen in love with New York, of course, as everyone does. And I think I kissed the stage, which now seems incredibly extravagant, but you know, it had become hallowed ground. And yeah, I wore my I Heart New York t-shirt. Yeah, no, that was a special evening. I'm just having loads of memories collide as we say that, but no, very special time, and made lifelong friends. And dear old James Corden, just, you know, my God, he worked so hard in all that time. Yeah, I think he missed one show. Wow. But he fractured a bone. You know, he wasn't like, oh, I've got a cold. Like, he was killing himself. I think there was one pre-contractual show he couldn't do because he was presenting the Brits, and when we were on the West End, but that, we didn't even know it was going to go to the West End. And then I think there was one other, I think in New York, where he just physically had to take a night off. But that was it. He did night after night after night after night, and my God, I could put my feet up in that show. I had that scene at the end of Act 1, and not much else, but it was, the best bit of the show. But I'm joking. But James was, wow.
Yeah, he worked so hard on that.
My God, yeah, he worked. Whatever I know people say things about him online and stuff, but watching him up close, he's extraordinary. He's so talented, and he really, really, really puts everything into it.
Yeah,
and I've never seen anyone. The way he worked that audience was sublime, and he's brilliantly gifted.
Yeah, I mean, because his part actually, he talked to the audience a lot.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, he engaged. I remember, I was one point actually not so much talking to the audience, but I remember one point he got his first entrance. He walks in and he grabs like a handful of nuts or something from the table.
Yes.
He threw the nut up in the air and caught it in his mouth. I remember us all watching in Aylesbury. All of us just went whoa like that and watched it.
It's brilliant because it's almost the first thing he does on stage. It makes everyone sit up and go, "Oh, it's going to be the kind of show where people are going to be catching peanuts, and that's going to be." But it's not. We're not watching the Cherry Orchard here. It's this is going to be like a good time. Not that I'm not dissing the Cherry Orchard, but you know what I mean. It was a great unbuttoned, fun celebration of live theatre. Really, really like that. And I think there were conversations about doing a film of it, and I think they just got to the point where you can't. No. It's specifically an event in front of a live audience. It's so theatrical. Like it required that, because what would you do with Alfie? Would you cast someone who is 86? It's not funny to see someone who is actually 86
no
getting smacked in the head with a cricket bat. That's not funny. But in a hyper real Laurel and Hardy kind of slapstick universe, let him have it.
That's
throw
funny.
him down the stairs.
Let him have it. It's brilliant.
So I'll suddenly find out they're making a film of it now, but it very much lives in the live theatre jungle.
It does, yeah. I remember James had that moment where there was a brilliant moment where he asked for a sandwich at one point, and I think we now know that it was a plant. Someone was given a Marks and Spencer's or a Sainsbury's or Waitrose sandwich or something. And you go, seriously, has anyone got a sandwich? And someone go, yeah, I got one. And then his reaction was, I remember at one point he didn't know whether he was actually going, oh wait, you've actually got one, or of course it was a plant. So James actually played that really well. And he looked at the audience and goes, I've got to be honest, guys, I don't know what to do right now.
It was brilliant because he had to sort of, as it were, have that authentic reaction every night. Because it wasn't like fake. It was a very fine line because he needed the audience to trust him because he was constantly in communication with the audience. So if the audience don't trust you, then you've lost something. But because we got real members of the audience up to help, and there was a gag with a heavy suitcase.
Yes.
Because that had happened, and that was clearly real people. When the sandwich gag happened, the audience, there's no reason for them to think that it's not real people. So that when the plant comes up in the dinner scene, the woman Christine Patterson comes up in the dinner scene, and we totally, destroy her, set her on fire and smack her in the head with a door and cover her in a fire extinguisher. They are totally believing this is a real person. And the humor of it, the shock and the humor. Eventually, everyone figures it out by the very end because you're like, you can't do what they're doing to her.
No, you can't.
A real person. But the fun is seeing how far the audience's credibility can go. And in fact, when I went back and watched it, when I wasn't in it, and watched it when it was at the Haymarket, the funny thing was I was sat in front of behind a couple, and this Christine Patterson character who is dragged up from the audience to help out in the restaurant scene, gets set on fire and covered in this fire extinguisher, and she smacks her head on the door, she's shoved under a table, all this stuff. the penny pretty much drops for everyone that you go, oh, it's an actor, but we've all
Yeah.
enjoyed this hysterical scene.
Yeah.
But there was a person in front of me going, no, he just could not allow for the idea that it wasn't a real person. So he was willing to make any totally implausible thing true. To go, oh, well, when she went under the table, they must have replaced her with an actress. And I remember his wife going, how could you replace a different person every night with the same actress? So they must have a huge wardrobe where they can replicate anybody's costume.
Yeah.
He's like, well, this is ridiculous. He was really sticking to it. He wasn't having. He said, oh, they must pay for her laundry bill then. Like, what?
Oh, dude, come on.
How? But no, I loved it though, because I was like, he is so convinced. I was like, well, it's really worked. But it would be much easier to just go, well, yeah, it's obviously an actor.
It's an actor. End of story.
Yeah.
So the two guys on the suitcase, were they actual audience members? That wasn't a plant.
Do you know what? I'll tell you a story, and then I must go, I'm afraid. But,
sure. Yeah.
They were real people. Always real people in the audience. There's a funny bit with James with the suitcase, and then he lets them get back to the auditorium. And he never used famous people because, sometimes there'd be stars come and sit in the aisle, and the temptation would be, oh, we could get so-and-so up. And James was very canny, and he knew that actually that would sort of break, it would affect his control. It would affect his power as the character.
Yeah.
Because then we'd all be in the world of whatever, celebrities. So he never did it. Except maybe the last month or maybe even the last week in New York. And by then he'd won the Tony, and it was all, we were all in clover and everything was great and we could do no wrong. And on the aisle, on the seat where he usually grabs someone to grab them up, this 2012 was Donald Trump. And Corden was in the wings with me going, shall I grab Trump? Shall I get him up on stage? And we were like, do it. It'll be good. Because he wasn't like an actor or a singer. So it wasn't like he was some star, a stage star. He was this, Donald Trump. So
wow,
James grabbed Donald Trump, and I don't know who else, some poor unfortunate soul, and did the whole suitcase scene with Trump. Did a big gag, you're fired. I mean, the place went crazy. And then there we were in costume in the wings. There's a bit where the two people who are chosen, they come into the wings and then we put them back into their seats. He was in the wings there going, great show, shaking our hands and stuff. But we were looking at him up close going, I still can't figure out where that hair starts. And where it ends. He had the long red tie, he had the whole thing. And it was just, little did we know in 2012. What was to come. But anyway, that was one of the strange.
He's the president now.
Well,
exactly. Yeah, Tom, I know you got to shoot off. I've literally got two really quick questions left for you. Is that okay? Or have you got to shoot off? Yeah, two last quick questions. I'll let you go. So first of all, what would you say was a bit of advice that you wish you heard at the start of your career?
I wish I'd worried less. I would always just worry. Is this job going to be my last job?
Yeah.
What's next? Trust. And the only thing you've really got is your determination.
Mm.
I say that to my young students. If I have students, like, it's sort of, this talent, I don't know, whatever. But like, if you're determined, I'm pretty sure that's what you need above virtually anything else.
Yeah.
But I don't know, in terms of advice, pick your battles.
Yep.
Keep your powder dry.
Yeah.
I think if you're someone who makes a battle out of everything, then when you need to make a battle out of something, who's listening? But when there's a moment where you're like, no, I need to make a noise here, then people will hopefully listen because they know you're not someone who makes a 3-act opera out of everything. So as time goes by, I hope I've learnt that. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah. Brilliant there. And finally today, last question for every guest. You've probably answered this already, actually, but what would you say was an experience or experiences you've had in your career up to now that you'll never forget?
Oh my God. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I've told a couple of them with Guvnors. Um, oh, there's so many. I'll probably think of a really good one
Once we finished.
once we've hung up.
You could say that the Waterloo Bridge one, that sounds incredible.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'll never forget that. Um, I tell you, actually, I will tell you one because I've been very, very lucky to have done a lot of wonderful things.
Mm.
Um, do you know what? One that this springs to mind is, and it's not as um, when at the end of my 20s, as I say, I was sort of treading water a little bit, and the big revival of Oliver came along. That was at Drury Lane. There
Yeah.
was Rowan Atkinson as Fagin, and Jodie Prenger had won the TV show to find Nancy. She was adorable. So it was that, and it was Rupert Gould directing it, and I'd work with him rather. He'd work with me. I'd worked with him in Northampton. Delusions of grandeur here. And anyway, I was in the ensemble, and I was first cover Sowerbury and second cover Fagin. I never went off for Fagin, but I went off for Cerebral. So, but it really felt like a good job for me because it was my first job in the West End, first big professional job in London. It was really what I needed at that point in my career. And I was very, very happy there and made lots of lovely friends and was having a very happy time. And Drury Lane is, I think, the most beautiful theatre in London.
It's stunning.
It's just beautiful. The Haymarket is gorgeous. I mean, anyway, I won't do a list, but Drury Lane is special, is incredibly special. And it was the press night, and it was a big press night. You know, a lot of press nights make a big deal out of stuff. I mean, that Evita press night I just went to, that was a rocket. I have to say, that was like a volcano. But anyway, we had something similar on this Oliver revival. It was a big, big press night. And at the end of the big number in Act One, big company number, is Consider Yourself. Mm. And it goes on, and it's very long. There's lots of layers of choreography and orchestration, and it really gets the audience into a great frenzy of excitement and joy because people love that show. And I remember at the press night, you sort of hit your last position at the end of the big climax of Consider Yourself, and we sort of hold it while the audience goes wild. And I really remember that because I think I remember going, this is where I wanted to be. This is where I wanted to get to. A stage of this size, or I don't mean that. I just mean a moment like this, a moment of it just felt very bright, a very bright moment of great joy. And I was sort of almost sobbing through the lyrics because I think it was just that, I mean, this is going to sound so cheesy and corny, but we all want to feel like we belong. And in the industry, so, unpredictable and insecure, who knows when you're given the touch to go, you are an actor, my son, you are part of it all, and just the sense of that song, you're one of us. And it gave me a very, very warm, beautiful feeling. And yeah, that stayed with me. Does that work?
Yeah, of course it does.
Yeah.
Of course it does, mate. That's brilliant. Oh, just that moment where you feel like, yeah, this is where I want to be. And
I wanted to get here, and I've got here. So good for me, and good for all of it. Yeah.
Exactly. Tom, this has been so much fun, man. Thank you so much
for I've enjoyed it.
You've been so generous with your time today. I really appreciate it. I know we're getting late in the day now, so I'll let you go. Thank you so much for everything that you've done, talking about Waiting for Godot, One Man, Two Guvnors, and everything else. Still got so many more things left for you, but I'd love to talk to you again at some point in the future. That'd be amazing.
Yeah,
but if you just hang on, I'll finish the recording, and then I'll let you go after that. But wow, that's brilliant. And just very quickly, thank you for sharing your talent with the world because. Seriously, I know very quickly, my mum actually talks about it as well. She loved you in One Man, Two Guvnors, and she loved you in Waiting for Godot and she still talks about your performances even now. She was like, I say, I remember Alfie, or do you remember
Yeah.
Lucky, and she goes, "Oh yeah, of course I remember him, yeah." And so
A
yeah,
woman of great taste.
yeah, yeah. I'll tell her that. But brilliant. No, seriously, Tom, thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. This has been the Uncensored Critic podcast. I'll be back very, very soon. And yeah, Tom, just thank you so much, man. This has been great.
You're very welcome. Thank you.